News Talk 790 WAEB. Joining me on the phone, independent candidate for United States Congress, Jake Towne. Hello there, Jake.
Hey, good morning, Gunther. Thanks so much for having me on your show again.
No problem. I guess I'm going to let you talk a little bit about where you stand on different issues or why you're running. Let's see. You know, you've talked about that in the past when you were in the primary. You're officially on the ballot now. What prompted you to get in the race?
What prompted me to get in the race was my experience living over abroad and kind of seeing what was going on back here in the United States with all the banker bailouts that were going on. That was a key factor, and that's when I kind of threw up my hands and said, you know, if somebody doesn't do something against both the Republican and Democratic parties that are ruining the nation, you know, our country's going to be in a lot of crisis.
I think it's true that there are the vast majority of Democrats are on the wrong side of the Constitution, and I'd say you could say that most, but not necessarily the vast majority of Republicans are, and sometimes you think there's no difference between the two, and a case could be made for that. But I do, and I know he's incumbent, but all your press releases that you send out, except with one exception that I've seen, you seem to be running against Charlie Dent and not John Callahan. Is it just, why is that? I don't see you really taking on John Callahan on any of the issues, and he is with the party that was for the bailouts.
Well, I have attacked John Callahan in just about every piece I've sent out because I always try to make a point of that. It had been a little bit of a problem just because he hadn't defined himself on a lot of the issues, but as a result of the first debate, one of the things that kind of came out of that is that he's pretty much for the wars. And when he was asked about, you know, what he would do, you know, with Afghanistan and Iraq, he replied that he would just decide, he would just follow whatever the generals told him. And so that's one of the key things I have attacked him in the past before is, you know, where is he on the wars?
Where are you on the wars?
Oh, my stance on both Iraq and Afghanistan are quite simple. I'm for the immediate and orderly withdrawal of our troops from both countries, and I won't extend a single dollar to be spent to pay for the occupation of these countries. Now, in terms of addressing the whole terrorism threat, what I am for is using small groups, small military groups, to capture these terrorists and bring them to a court of law and justice, which is what we should have been doing the day after 9/11, and even before 9/11.
Okay, now here, this is from your, this is on your own website actually about the you made this in a clip dealing with the Ground Zero Mosque. It's about 3.5 minutes in on YouTube on this piece. Of course, when speaking of the murder of innocent civilians, Americans must refuse the role of a naive bystander. We must realize hundreds of thousands of innocents have been killed in Iraq and tens of thousands in Afghanistan. A huge percentage of these deaths are caused by our military. Is Mr. Towne actually claiming our troops are casually and wantonly making war on civilians as the enemy is?
No, I'm just stating a fact, and you know, it's a fact that when you have a war zone, you are going to have collateral, what we refer to as collateral damage occurring. The reality is you have a lot of innocent civilians dying.
But your philosophy now. I saw the National Geographic special. Hardly a conservative organization, if you actually get into any of the stuff they write. And they showed it was an hour long or maybe longer piece on all the murders that Saddam Hussein did, and literally they showed bodies. They estimated over several 100,000 bodies that he had killed and gassed the Kurds. And you saw the families huddled together, etc. And at some point I realized, my God, they're families just like us, and they're mothers that wanted to protect their children and they couldn't. You just let that go? You do nothing?
Well, it's kind of, you know, it's just like Madeleine Albright said when our sanctions in the 1990s caused the deaths of over 1 million Iraqi children, and she said, you know, I think it was worth it. And you know, obviously, I do not condone.
No, but there's a difference between us trying to do something another way. To just compare them. That's naive on your part. You want to talk about naive? We try to do something to stop what he was doing. Maybe it didn't work, and maybe she shouldn't have said it was worth it. On the other hand, you suggest we do nothing.
Well, what I don't suggest is that we go and take part in these nation-building wars. And if you recall, like the whole thing about Iraq was they were tying them to Al-Qaeda and 9/11, and they were tying them to these weapons of mass destruction, which, number one, didn't exist or they didn't find any, And number two.
Well, actually, they did, but actually, they did find some. But for some reason, George Bush, as inept as he was with his own PR, chose not to, because they found, I forget what it was that they found towards the end. I forget how many million tons or pounds or whatever it was of uranium and other stuff. I can't remember all of it. I don't have those facts in front of me, but they did find some. But I can agree with you that we don't belong in nation building. I can agree with you on that, but to seem to be comparing us to these murderers, I think is wrong, and that's the way it comes off, whether you realize it or not. Secondly, another thing you're quoted as saying is that 9/11 was part of the blowback from America's Middle East policy, yes?
What you need to realize is that with Hezbollah and the Tamil Tigers and suicide terrorism, is that it's used as a tactic to compel modern democracies to remove their troops from both nations, from a nation where they're viewed as invaders.
Okay, wait, hold on, I have to stop you there. I'm looking at the religionofpeace.com website, and the suicide bombers that just attacked yesterday in Sumatra, Indonesia, and they attacked in Somalia, and they attacked in Nigeria. This is just in the last 2 days, and Algeria. And I see those, and I think, what's that got to do with troops?
Well, again...
well, what's it got to do with these people? Are terrorists, and I think you are the Neville Chamberlain of this race, where you're sitting there naive thinking they're going to go away. Again, I'm not for nation building. I actually agree with you that we don't belong going in there, but to sit there and blame... Huh?
What you have to realize is that when you go after... You have to do two things to defeat suicide terrorism. You need to capture the current generation, and you need to stop the second generation from popping up.
Okay, now, hold on. If you don't go in... Now, I'm against nation building. I don't think it's in our Constitution. I'm going to just play devil's advocate, however. If you don't go in and establish some other kind of government and try to get a democracy going, how do you think you stop the second generation? Because they're only going to be indoctrinated by the current people.
No, we should not be nation building. We shouldn't be telling people what to do. Like if you go in and read the Iraq Constitution and the Afghanistan Constitution.
Oh yeah, they are for continuing Sharia law.
Yes.
Yes, I know. Absolutely.
I don't think we should be using taxpayer money to do that.
I agree with you. I agree with you more than you realize, but I also disagree that to sit there and say that... I had Waleed Shoebat, who was a Palestinian PLO, member of the PLO, and he said to say that this is blowback is crazy. He goes, he was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, and that started in the 1920s. He goes, long before there was a state of Israel, we were intent on wiping out any Christians. He goes, we want the Islam to conquer the world. So it's to say it's blowback that's where I disagree with you, because otherwise, why are they? If it's blowback, what did Algeria have to do with anything? What did Somalia have to do? What did Indonesia have to do with anything? And these are all just this week. These are all terrorist attacks just this week.
Well, the other thing that you need to keep in mind is that these terrorists, with the Al-Qaeda group, they follow something called Salafism, which is basically a perversion of Islam, and it's not really like I've worked in a Muslim country, Malaysia, for a while, and what you'll quickly find is that the people are very nice. They're just like the most pious Christians that you'll find, and that's the whole thing that you need to realize. It is a group of radical people, but it's not necessarily Islam that is the evil. It's the people that are committing these heinous acts, and we need to go after them and capture them.
I can agree with you to a point, but then again, the Americans, again, sitting here from our worldview, we're not hearing any moderate Muslims or peace-loving Muslims come out and protest what's being done in the name of Islam. And we're wondering, why is the silence so deafening? Jake, your website, please?
It's Towne for Congress, Towne for Congress.com.
All right, I'm already out of time. We'll get you scheduled again, though, all right?
Hey, thank you very much for your time, Gunther. Appreciate it.
Yep. Jake Towne, independent candidate for United States Congress, running against John Callahan and Charlie Dent.